Hello. Today I'm going to show you exactly what I've been doing this summer. One is that I decided to try to work with faux paper. Some people call it faux rice paper, DIY paper, and there's a lot of tutorials online. So I started watching them. I started with the treasure books and then moved on to several other people's tutorials, and I learned a lot. To start out with, I didn't realize that you needed to use a wax paper or a freezer paper or a plastic bag or Ziploc type structured bags, any kind of bag from a department store, those types of bags that you spread out. I ended up starting to use acetate, which is what is on the back of this. This just happens to be a magazine that I picked up to work with this project on. It's 1914 Mother's Magazine. And I realized early on that I had made the mistake with the using the acetate. So I had done, I probably for the past, you spent a period of 10 days on this faux project, and would come in and, set everything out for an overnight and then come back and then do it again the next day, and went around and probably did 5 to 7 different batches. And so this is what I learned, is that acetate isn't going to work. Especially acetate won't work for thinner or paper that's more that's old. So this is the Mother's magazine, and I really saw some articles in there that I thought were really good. But basically, these are it's the same thing as laminating them, because I do have the glue on top and set it flat to dry and so forth, but the paper's too thin to pull off. So that is the way that worked. That was that experiment. And then I went into using napkins and peeling them off and using the napkins, and that turned out pretty good overall. Here's an example of some that are softer, and then this really looks like what you would think or you would want your project to end up looking like. So, but a lot of mine were not that stiff. They were more sort of a little bit pliable. So I ended up playing around with all different kinds of napkins and whatever I could find. And I found that the more colorful the napkin, the better it would be. It turns out. These are actually this is actually a tissue that you buy, the little 5-packs of napkins. And here's an example of where I tried to pull it, and I was just afraid that it was going to be so hard and it was going to keep tearing. Now I did take and use this X-Acto knife to work with some of them to try to get them to, to come apart and things of this nature. But I ended up just wanting to protect it. So I did put some glitter on some of these, so that you're going to find the glitter does work nicely. One batch, I wondered if putting the glitter on it was a problem, but it didn't turn out. I don't think that was the problem. So I used 2/3 to 1/3 cup water to 2/3 cups glue, and I used diamond glaze, and I used PVA glue. I used Elmer's glue. This is a lot of glue. So here's an example of where I put a glitter on the top of this napkin, and it's two people on a couple dancing. And so I thought maybe I could, you know, maybe I just didn't want to, because I put the glitter on it, and when I went to take it apart, you know, it wouldn't really, I couldn't really get it apart. But I may try a little bit harder on some of these that I did that didn't work out as well. This one worked out well, but it's just that the color wasn't clear enough, so it doesn't really look like anything. The napkin, these types of napkins really worked well. I've already used a bunch, used little cutouts for, which is one of the things that I did on a snippet roll that I was working on. So this just gives you an idea. See, this batch turned out really good. This is what you'd want it, you know, what you would want it to look like. So the more colorful the napkin, the prettier. This is what this turned out like. So it turned out darker, but you know, I was able to peel it off and it worked out fine. This is another one that turned out. This is one that I think this napkin belonged to these are napkins, paper napkins that my mom had a big stack of, and I think these came from Japan. They were already peeled apart, so, but again, I was afraid to pull on it. This is a Monet. The more pale, the pastel, it doesn't turn out as nice as the darker, more distinct. This turned out really beautiful. This one. And like I say, I tried over and over, five or so, at least 5 times to get, and I did put some glitter mist on some of them, and glimmer mist, and but the more vibrant the color in the napkin, the better it turns out. So that is what these, you know, what these look like. So I'm going to put these aside. This is an example of, you know, taking the paper and peeling it apart. And this is wax paper, so it's really easy. So what I learned from this is that I will not use acetate. I will always use something that has and about the 5th tutorial that I watched, someone said always use a freezer paper, not a parchment paper, a wax paper. You can use plastic bags from the grocery store. You can use just all sorts of anything that has that, trash bags and things of that nature can be used to help it to peel off. So my problem was not being able to peel everything off because I didn't have the right kind of backing. And this is an example of one batch turned out really plasticky. And what I ended up using was Gulf wax and rubbing it. And by rubbing it with the Gulf wax, it made it less sticky. And I know that some people have had a problem with stickiness. I don't know if it's the amount of glue, the type of glue, the type of backing, the type of paper, the thinness, the age of the paper. I think that these are all factors that I found came into play. But like I say, I did use the back of napkins, and I also used tissue tracing paper. So these are what the ones with the napkin backings and the tracing paper. This is tracing paper here, and it turned out really plasticky and thin. Or, and this was done on wax paper. So some of them turned out quite pretty, but you can see here where I tried to pull it. This is on acetate. This was one of the first ones I did. So this gives you an example of some of the experiences and experiments that I had. So I also used tissue paper. And I wanted to show you some of the ways that I used the various tissue papers. This is a whole book page of a book, of a journal, a whole journal page used with that faux paper. And it turned out to be, just fine. Here's another example of using one of them in a pocket right here. This turned out to be a pocket. Turned out really nice, and I used that. This is an example of this one that I was afraid to pull apart, or it just wasn't going to pull like I thought, that it should. And but I used it as a backing right here. And then I used Franken pages. I used it for making Franken pages, which can be used as a pocket in a journal, or it can be used as a small book. I did make a small book with one of them. So here's an example of using it as a pocket. The same as I was saying before. This is using this tissue paper here that ended up, it didn't turn out really tight. It turned out more pliable, rolled over until I used the wax on it. And so I was able to use it on the back of a book page. I didn't have a lot of luck with my teacup paper. This ended up, well, it does tear, but it ended up being where I tried to pull it apart and it just wouldn't come. So, and this I had put glitter on it, so then I wondered if maybe the fact that I put glitter on it caused it to not work out. But anyway, with the teacup paper, or the teacup tissue paper, I was able to make a couple of little tags. And then this type of paper here, I ended up making some bookmarks. And then yeah, so this is what that looked like when it was like that. This is the tissue roll that I did. I mean, the snippet roll. What I did with this is, this is a piece of the paper, and some of the tissue paper. I think this is the tracing paper. This is the tracing paper. And you could see where it's a little bit sticky. This one turned out just great. It was the butterfly paper. And then I ended up cutting out shapes, hearts, and let's see, flowers, seashells, different shapes out of some of the floral paper that turned out so nicely, and some of the gold trim paper that came out really nicely. This is where I used that for some of the shapes, but turned out nicely. Turned out really, really nice. I'm still working on it, and I'm going to make it. Well, this is just one. It's a work in progress. And here is the book that I made out of the little bunny rabbit one. It turns out that it turned out really nice. It has a nice smooth finish on it. I did do some glitter on it, but it turned out nicely. And then one more book page is where I took book pages and made pockets out of the book pages. But what I ended up finding is some of the book pages would come apart and others wouldn't. This one just would not come apart. Or a couple of batches it didn't, and then others just came right off. But you could see here where I tried to get them to come apart. But I was able to make some little envelopes out of a couple of these. Haven't sewn up them all yet, but they turned out, you know, they will turn out nicely once I get them and can use them. And of course I can use them as background on a book page. You know, all those things are good ideas. So just to let you know that there are lots of things you can do with these pages. I'm no expert, I can tell you that right now, and I'm still learning, and I can't wait. I have more napkins that I have found in my garage that I had packed away, and I'm gonna do it again because it is an addicting project. You want it to just do it every day, and it's fun. It's just a lot of fun. So thanks for watching, and we'll talk again soon.